So it seems like anime movies have been the go-to recently when it comes to literally anything. Whether it be ending a show, giving fan service, telling a side story, or just a straight cash grab. And BlueLock followed the pack of horses, releasing its own movie on the spin-off manga episode Nagi. As a BlueLock fan, this was pretty hype. Episode Nagi is a reoccurring manga that releases monthly and is almost as loved as the main manga, which is hard to do. Raking in 1.6 billion yen in Japanese theaters alone, everyone else patiently waited 3 months for the movie to be released internationally, and here in the States, it released just a few days ago. But going into the movie, there was a lot of expectations and questions on people's minds. What will we see in this movie? Will it just be a recap movie, which is the worst? Will the animation be fixed? A big problem during the season 1 of BlueLock? Is this movie worth my money? So it's time for me to whip out my pen and paper, put on my thinking cap, and give you guys the full non-spoiler review on the BlueLock movie, and at the end, giving my own rating and whether you should watch it or not. I want to keep the spoiler free in case you want to watch it off of my review, and if you already watched it, you'll 100% understand every single point I make. BlueLock, if you don't know, is a soccer anime where instead of the power of friendship, they use the power of narcissism, where games are all about themselves and themselves alone. First season released in 2022, so the movie is the second piece of animated BlueLock content we are getting. And the movie episode Nagi follows a fan favorite for most people, Nagi Seishiro, and basically his story or perspective throughout BlueLock. Me just saying that though, you probably think it's recap, which is my first point. Is this movie a recap movie? Probably the most important one to know so that you don't waste any money. And to that I say, not necessarily. The movie falls into sort of this gray zone where it's not canon, you don't need to watch it to progress in the story. Like the trailer and summary shows, this is the same BlueLock, just from a different perspective. So you are getting mostly the same opponents and the same games. But that doesn't mean it's just recap though. This movie does a good job at not making it the exact same thing we have already seen. You don't get a feeling of deja vu, even though it's technically the same games as season 1. It feels new. We know from the trailer that we get the Team Z versus Team B game, which was already in the anime. And even though we've seen this game, they approached it with a very good, different style than the actual anime, so it's not necessarily recap. Let's touch a little bit on the actual plot of the movie though. Nagi Seishiro is a completely different character than our main protagonist, which is Isagi Yoichi. If you watched BlueLock, you already know that Nagi was naturally talented compared to everyone else. So he basically doesn't understand everyone's grind to become better because he thinks it's easy in the first place. And this movie explores that perspective of it. Rather than fighting to survive like every other player in this series, Nagi is fighting to learn, which again was already said in the main series, but that's pretty much just the plot of this movie. We also get a pretty good amount of new scenes. For example, Nagi and Ryo's beginnings. This is all new things that we haven't seen before in the original first season. I will say though, even though we got a pretty good amount of new scenes, those new scenes weren't good. This has a lot to do with a big boss man that does haunt every single anime movie, which is pacing. Pacing is definitely something we need to talk about. The second point of this video, the movie is an hour and 26 minutes long, which I think is literally the shortest anime movie ever made. Demon Slayer, Jujutsu Kaisen Zero, quintessential quintuplets, even old ones like Studio Ghibli movies are usually around 2 hours. So with the BlueLock movie being 30 minutes less than that, we were bound to get either cut out content or rushed content. Between the two, they decided to go with the latter half, rushing out almost every single piece of content in the movie. And when I mean rushed, like full coins in Mario Kart, going for a speed run, and Usain Bolt was impressed at the pace of the BlueLock movie. It really felt like we were on 2x speed or fast forward. In the span of what seems to be 10 minutes, you play so many games and go through so much of the manga adaptation. And because of that, you miss out on a lot of development and key details that was originally in the spin-off. When it comes to movies as well, people are way more willing to take their time and watch everything all the way through. Unlike an actual anime where you can fast forward, skip 10 seconds ahead, the movie pretty much did that for us here. The rush pacing makes it hard to really get attached to any of the characters, but it does make for a lot of action. For some people who like that fast ADHD action-packed style of pacing, you'll really like this. It's just not everyone's cup of tea. As someone who read the spin-off, which the movie is about, I knew going into this adaptation was going to be a problem, and although they did manage to get a lot of it off, it just wasn't too properly done. Now, is that enough to not want to watch the movie though? I think something way more important than that, and probably what you've all been waiting for me to talk about since the start, is the animation. Let's just dive into it though. Cat's out of the bag. The animation actually did improve, but there are still a lot of things in it that make it not the best. Coming off of season 1, I think both the BlueLock movie and BlueLock season 2 had pretty big shoes to fill because this was the biggest complaint in the series. And when it comes to animation, I think the movie did actually fill those shoes, but left a little space in there. Overall though, they did pretty good. I think people are still going to be very nitpicky with it. A lot of other reviews were saying how bad it was, but when you watch it, it's actually still pretty enjoyable. I personally saw a difference. I could literally notice the difference, but it isn't hard considering we're trying to improve from scenes like this. They improve things like shading. I can make a comparison here because it shows in the trailer. You can noticeably see a difference between the two. Auras, specifically Nagi's, was actually done really well. They changed the color. It doesn't look like this cloud built like the Michelin Man anymore, but instead it flows very nicely. Auras, the eyes, everything like that was done super well, and they are very important to BlueLock, especially in season 2. However, for being a movie which tends to have a higher budget, you'd expect them to go all out, but that wasn't really the case here. There are still a few things that stick out like sore thumbs. We have to talk about the CGI, which was a problem in season 1 and is still a problem in the movie, which brings a lot of red flags to the viewers. Usually you think over time the CGI use gets better. For example, Demon Slayer season 1 had a pretty good amount of CGI use, and then in later seasons they either used the CGI in a good way or just didn't use it at all. So for the next piece of animated BlueLock content to have no improvement in that aspect at all, it raises a few concerns. The alarms go off and everyone will talk about it, but honestly I know that it does take a lot of effort to hand draw it. It's just something we have to talk about because I don't think there was any improvements in that aspect. The next thing is white backgrounds, and wow, they were actually worse than season 1 this time around. I've said this countless times, manga panels that didn't have blank white backgrounds would have blank white backgrounds in the anime, which sucks because there are important details here. And it's just not pleasing to the eyes as well. You're pretty much getting flashbangs by the background, and then Zantetsu's face is just smack in the middle. And let's talk about characters while we're at it. Zantetsu, Ryo, and Nagi are basically the 3 main characters in this movie, as the movie is literally about them. The comedy was good. Voice actors absolutely killed their role, served us some Michelin star food. We were eating good here with voice acting. I watched the sub version. This was always one of the best things about BlueLock. They have really good voice actors, and it doesn't disappoint here. So if you're someone that really cares about voice acting in an anime, you'll 100% be satisfied here. The soundtracks or OSTs as well were a symphony to my ear. They did a damn good job at this. Like, I could literally still hear it echoing in the back of my mind. That's when you know the music is damn good. There isn't a single second where the soundtrack or voice acting disappoints. In fact, there's literally not a single second where it's not jaw-droppingly beautiful. I think this was one of the best parts of the movie and made it super enjoyable. The voice acting and OSTs also mix into the climax of the movie, or the main part, which I gotta say, when this movie does something good, it does it very good. Earlier I said that we get a little bit of recap, seeing the same things, but those same things have a different feel to it. Yeah, the climax of the movie was exactly that, because you got Nagi's aura popping up over here, another Harry Potter spell, some character going in, and then their aura pops up, and then the eyes start to change, the music is different. It's something we've never seen before in BlueLock. That single sequence of events really changed my opinion on the whole movie, from being mid to slightly better than mid. So now that I covered everything about the movie that you need to know, concerns, main points of it, should you watch this movie, and what was my final takeaways? I think overall there were more improvements than flaws, but still not enough for an actual anime movie. Movies usually have their own separate huge budget, so I was kind of expecting top of the line animation. Oh well though, it's still an enjoyable watch for a BlueLock fan. I think us BlueLock fans literally fiend for any content we can get our hands on, and this definitely satisfies that. I wasn't flabbergasted throughout the whole movie. It didn't have my jaw dropping the whole time, but definitely the good parts make up for that. The good parts are done really well, which brings it up some points, like the climax, OSTs, and voice acting. And then the rush pacing, CGI, and all the other stuff bring it down a few points there as well. So in general, I think my personal rating is a 6.5 out of 10. It's not something you'd go preach about to your friends about how peak it is, but I think it's something definitely worth a watch. They're not robbing you of your money like some of the other anime movies as well. The movie in general has a 6 out of 10 rating on almost everywhere, which I think is a bit accurate. I do think people overhated it though. Anyways, for non-BlueLock fans, or maybe some people's first taste of BlueLock, I don't think watching this movie is too good of a choice. You can't really establish any close connections or attachment to some of the characters because of the rush style of pacing the movie gives you. But if you're a fan of BlueLock or have watched it in general, I think this does a good job at giving you what BlueLock does best. The whole insane goals, egoism, and cool auras and stuff. If you watched the movie already, make sure to let me know your thoughts and personal rating in the comments down below. I just wanted to share my thoughts and ratings on it because I literally just finished watching it, while also letting people know about it. I'll see y'all in the next one.